Hello families, this is Mrs. Bauer. I am going to show you how our class is currently subtracting. We are regrouping, which is the old way of saying borrowing. So this is not new Common Core stuff at all. This is subtraction like it used to be back in the day. We just call it regrouping instead of borrowing. The only other change might be this place value chart right here. It is a visual help to students when they are subtracting with and without regrouping. So I'm just going to, before I start, I'm going to tell you the importance about subtracting and adding. We are in Module 4 right now, and we are going to be in this module for a little bit longer, but when we go to Module 5, it's really the same concept as Module 4. So instead of subtracting and adding to the hundreds, we're going to go all the way to the thousands. And this is very important for third grade because it gets them ready for multiplication and division. So in third grade, they do touch on adding and subtracting with regrouping, but they do it much faster and not as long as we do it in second grade. So I really want to stress that this is important to get now because we're going to see it again in the next module that we do, and then in third grade they're just going to fly through it. So I need them to understand it now. I think modules 4 and 5 are the most important chapters in second grade. So I'm trying to take a lot of time on it. So I want to show you what we're doing so you can help your children. So as you can see, we have a 3-digit number and we are subtracting a 2-digit number. So first we would I would ask them what the total is, and the total is 163, and then we're taking out the part 28. So when you're drawing on the place value chart, when you're subtracting, when you're adding, it's a little bit different, but when you're subtracting, you want to draw the total. You don't draw the part because you're taking that out, so you wouldn't draw it. So you're only drawing the total, so there is a 1 in the hundreds place. So they can either draw this in two ways. They can draw a disc with the number 100 in it, or they can just draw a disc. Some kids need the 100, some kids don't, so they can just draw 1 for 100, and then there are 6 tens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I told them to be very neat about it because when they're sloppy, it's hard to count how many discs that they have in the place value chart. So to be very neat, I like to draw my 6 as kind of like in a 10 frame, if you know what a 10 frame is. So there's 5 on the top, 5 on the bottom. So because it's 6, there's 5 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So I like to do what's called like a 5 frame. So here's a 1, 6, and a 3. 4 3 ones. And once again, if they were drawing the tens, if they didn't want to do a dot, they could make a disc this way with a 10 in it. Either way is fine. So, or they could draw a 1 disc like this. So sometimes when they have the number inside the disc, it helps them a little bit better or a little bit more. So I'm drawing 163, and it matches my numbers here, 163. So 163, 163. Now I'm getting ready to subtract. In our class, we have a poem that we say, more on the floor, go next door and get 10 more. So it's really part of a bigger poem. Let me show you the bigger poem. Let's scoot this up here. So I had it attached to some of their work in Schoology they did. So we say more on the top, no need to stop. So when you have 8 minus 5, you can do that. 8 minus 5, you can do it on your fingers. You can make discs. It is possible to do. But when there's more on the floor, meaning the number on the bottom is bigger, you have to go next door and get 10 more. The end of the poem says numbers the same, zeros the game. So sometimes kids get really confused when you're working with zeros. So it's part of the poem too. A lot of teachers use this poem. We say it a lot in our classroom to help students know when to regroup and when not to regroup, because some kids are still having trouble with that. So if I go back to my problem, I ask the kids, like, where do we start? Do we start subtracting from the hundreds, the tens, or the ones? And I get various answers, but I keep reminding them we start at the ones. Sometimes I draw like a little arrow. I'll say we're starting on this side over here by the ones. And so our first little problem in this much bigger problem, that's another thing I tell the kids, that this 163 minus 28 looks like a really, really hard problem, but really it's 3 easier problems inside of that bigger problem. So we start at the ones and we say there's more on the floor, so we have to go next door and get 10 more. So I'm going to show you what that looks like for them. So I'm going over to the tens place. I'm taking this 10 and I'm getting 10 more ones. So I have to actually draw them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, like I said, I like to make it look like a 10 frame, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now I say, can we start subtracting? So they might say yes, because now we have the 10 ones drawn over here. But before we have to subtract, we have to make our number match the discs. So we don't have 3 ones anymore. We now have 13 ones. So this is just like borrowing back in the day. It's exactly the same. And we don't have 5 or 6 tens. We now have 5 tens. But we still have 100. So I need kids to, when they're doing their work, I need them to show me their work either through the discs, or if the discs are just really, really confusing and they can get it without the discs, if they know just to cross this out and there's 13 and cross this out and there's 5, I'm absolutely fine with that. The discs are nice for now when I want to subtract. So now going back to the ones, I say 13 minus 8, and I can cross these, I say these dudes out. I can cross these guys out. So if they're not sure what 13 minus 8 is, they can see 13 and they can literally cross out 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And sometimes when I'm crossing out numbers, I don't make this an X per se, because I made this one an X to show the one that we've regrouped over to the ones. I kind of make that difference, so I just make one line through them to show the 8 I've crossed out. And then of course there's 5 left down here, and if they've done it very neatly, they should see the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then sometimes kids forget that it's 5 minus 2. So here's the second little problem. Here's the first little problem, 13 minus 8. The second little problem is 5 minus 2. So they have to cross out 2 more, and I like to show them that these are the 2 that they're taking away or they're crossing out, but this is the one that they regroup. So that's why this is one line and this is like an X. So there are 3 left over. So I see a lot of confusion right here in this step. And then sometimes some kids forget that all about this 100 over here, it's just hanging out by itself. I do use the word placeholder. I say it's 1 minus what? I say it's a blank space. So what is the blank space? And I make them tell me it's nothing, it's 0. So you can actually draw in the placeholder if you want. That's what we called it back in the day, and they still call it that. When they go to 4th and 5th grade, they're going to use the word placeholder. So 1 minus 0, sometimes even kids get tricked up with that. I'm telling you, adding and subtracting with 0, for some reason it messes with students' brains, so they need a lot of practice with that. Where you think it would be super easy, sometimes because it's a vague concept, they struggle with it. But 1 minus 0, of course, is 1. So I refrain from just saying bring down the 1, because it's not what they're doing. It's really 1 minus 0. And so that's how we're doing adding and subtracting right now. We've done a lot of practicing this week. I've noticed work has gotten better throughout the week, but a majority of the class still needs a lot of practice with this concept. So any help that you can give, I will be your BFF for life. I will love you forever, and I'm sure your child will appreciate it too, because there's just something that isn't clicking with them so far, but we're still going to work on it. It's not going to die. Like I said, we're going to do it in Module 5 a lot too, and we still have quite a bit of Module 4 to go. So adding and subtracting with regrouping is a huge thing, and they need it for 3rd grade. If you have any questions about this idea, please send me an email or a chat message in Dojo. Most of you have my phone numbers at this point. I'm very available. So have a great weekend, and I hope this helps.